And we are here for the 2024 edition of Statehouse Conversations. That's when IPBS comes here, sets up shop in an attempt to help Hoosier voters, Hoosier taxpayers have a better understanding of what takes place here at the Statehouse and a better appreciation of the men and women they elect to go and do their work. And one of those people is sitting right here, right now, Robb Greene, District 47. Thank goodness it's not a pop quiz. I would have been marked down a little bit. And for those who prefer words to numbers, Shelbyville.
Western Shelby County.
Shelby County.
People know our part. It has the casino off 74, and then the southern 2/3 of Johnson County.
So you're the fun part of Shelby. No,
well,
I didn't say it. Yeah.
Not for everybody, but yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking time.
No, thank you for having me on.
What's important to you this session? What can you go back to that western part of Shelby County, the northern part, Johnson, and say, hey, victory, declare victory? What has to happen?
I was pretty vocal during my campaign when I first ran in 22 that the reason I ran was really the motivation was my son. My son was diagnosed with autism at an early age. As I've told people a lot in my journey here, it was really something that just completely reoriented our family. And I had a little bit of a background as a staffer, a campaign guy. So I mean, I knew the rhythms and tempos of politics. The legislative side was new, but I looked around and I didn't see too many people that personally wore that issue on their sleeve. Obviously, a lot of great people who care about the IDD space and individuals who live with a disability, but I didn't really see that parent's heart out there. So it really called me to run, and I was very vocal with that on the campaign trail. And I quickly found out that you knock on a door, it doesn't take very long to find people who have a son, a daughter, someone they work with, someone they go to church with, a neighbor, a cousin, a brother. And so it was an issue that touched a lot of people that I think the conventional issues that you deal with in a Republican primary or a Democrat primary kind of all went out the window. And it was something that I wanted to bring more attention to. And since getting here, I found there are other members that, just like me, have a child. And I'm hoping to form maybe a little caucus sometime soon.
I was going to ask how you were reading my mind.
Yeah,
because I am aware of a few others, and there probably could be the makings of a group that where that's the common theme or the common motivator. Well, if that was what drove you to get here, now that you're here, how, aside from knowing that it really does touch, it doesn't have there's no partisan label attached to challenges and disabilities of that type. But so moving beyond that, other than the fact that it's ubiquitous and every Hoosier family's mostly been touched by it, how good do you feel, optimistic or pessimistic, about what can be done by your 149 new best friends here in terms of making tangible differences in the lives of these individuals?
I think the personal connection goes a long way. I, out of the gate in my first session during the budget year, had a bill that would implement a tax credit for employers that would hire someone through vocational rehab services. And tax credits are mixed, in a lot of individuals in the General Assembly. I'm a freshman. I wasn't on Ways and Means. It was a budget year. I mean, it had multiple strikes against it. And I worked hard. I was persistent. My wife and I were very open about telling our story and sharing our journey in this and why it's important, and the numbers of individuals with a disability who are out of the workforce. And I think that carried a lot of weight with people. We live in a very cynical, partisan age, but I do still think when people understand where you're coming from and when it touches you personally, not everybody has a heart of stone. And I think, it kind of broke through that, and I was very blessed, very fortunate just as a freshman to have that bill get inserted into a larger bill and go through. I've tried to share that around now that it went live, starting on the 1st of this year. I've been trying to communicate that to employers around the state and people in our district that, hey, reach out to your local vocational rehabilitation service, and there are individuals here who want to be in the workforce. And I think that message has gotten out, especially, as I said, with other members who are touched by that same issue. Representative Lori Goss-Reeves, Craig Haggard's, Representative Haggard's stepson went through ABA services. Becky Cash, no stranger to this fight. We've been finding a lot of common ground with people, and I think as more and more people start to talk about that, the Overton window, as they say, starts to shift a little bit.
And when you look at making a difference and awareness certainly is part of it, increasing sensitivity to the issue. You talked about a dollar and cents component with the tax credit to encourage employers. And a lot of these issues, whether it's autism or anything else, there seems to be a cost attached, whether that's new money to fund or encourage or incentivize or to enhance screening, treatment, prevention. What, as you look at next steps, this session and beyond, do you mostly see things that money is an answer, or is it tweaks of regulation? Is it public education? Where do we go from here? I
think it's all of the above. 2 bills that I'm working on this year. One dealt with the ABA Medicaid reimbursement rate change. Obviously, as you know, I leaned into that pretty heavily during the summer. Still have some concerns about where that rate came down. I have a bill this year, House Bill 1153, that simply asks for a report from FSSA, like what happened post-rate change for 10 months, month by month. Did we lose providers? How many people are still on the rolls? Let's just take a look at what happened with that. Because I look at ABA services, as you talk about the fiscal component to that, I look at ABA as something that you're investing in on the front end of a child, right? You're reaching them to intervene as early as possible in their life, to be able to give them the ability to enter their local school when they're ready, to get a job, to live independently down the road. So it's, I looked at that issue as you can take that funding away now, you can take that resource away now, or you can deal with it down the road, and you're going to deal with it a lot, in an order of magnitude at that point. My son is probably a typical case. He spent 3 years in intensive ABA therapy, and now he's in a school setting. And I credit ABA to making that possible. And so I try to tell that story to other legislators as well, and say, look, this is an issue where if you're concerned about Medicaid spend growing, this is one where you spend a little bit of money on the front end to deal with this, or you can spend it for the life of a child over there, into adulthood. And
you find there's a receptivity to the message?
I think it's a powerful argument. Obviously, the public health bill, that was sort of the impetus behind it. We need to invest these dollars now to have an outcome that's 10 years, 15, 20 years down the road. I think that message carries, and to be candid, after the accounting issue with FSSA, maybe there's a little bit more of an appetite to take a look at.
Just a little $1 billion
a rounding error. Right?
That's what we see in our checkbook, those errors all the time. And I know that has sensitized people to the issue of shepherding every dollar. It was already a tight squeeze, but even more so now. But you're right, it often does come down to, in many cases and scenario, whether it's in the health field or in criminal justice or education, name it. We can pay now. What's the old, or you can pay me now or you can pay me later.
That's right.
Well, last question. I'm going to be mindful of your time, and I'm actually going to move away from a specific issue and passion. I'm just going to ask you your observations on the process, because with all the retirements, we were just, as you sat down, we were talking about how many current lawmakers are retiring. You may be the most senior member by the end of our interview, but at the rate we're going. But you do know your way around here now. You're so fresh, but what do you want constituents and Hoosiers to know about this institution, about what you and your colleagues do here during session and beyond, that maybe, we all took civics class back in high school. We took, I think it was 4th grade, we did Indiana history, maybe touched on this, but I've slept since then. A lot of people, sometimes they know there's a pretty building here with a nice dome on top, but what do you want to, talk to your constituents, what do you want to know about what goes on here?
I think they should know that people, whenever they have an issue or they're part of an organization that says, hey, call, email, text, write into your member of the legislature, I think they think that just goes into the ether, and it really doesn't. And I've been amazed at the attention that my colleagues give when you get 2-3 people that all email in about a certain issue. People do take notice of that. I'm very hands-on with my constituent work. I enjoy sort of the analog correspondence with them. Part of that is I just feel that there's a sort of an obligation. One single member of the legislature can only do so much. I mean, if you work as hard as you can and get up at 4 a.m. and commit yourself, you could maybe pass 1 or 2 bills if everything goes in your favor. But one of the simple things you can do is be more in touch and more personal with the people that you represent, right? And I try to show that to my constituents by engaging in a more old school way of just handwritten letters, things like that. And I see a lot of other members do that here. They reach out, they're very generous with their time in taking those meetings. And
I mean, you make a great case, because I think a lot of Hoosiers might think that, you have 29 levels of staff who, if they send a letter, it might get up 3 levels, but never it's going to reach you or get you on the phone. What an impossible thought. And yet, you are reachable, it does have an impact. And I should point out, if I'm not mistaken, you actually respond in cursive writing. We were joking about that earlier. So
Senator Lysing should be happy.
Above
Yes,
and beyond.
yes,
Yeah, we're going to get
yeah.
you an A+ from Senator Lysing. We may not know how to form every letter, but you make a
Yes.
damn good attempt at it when
Thank
you
you.
write those.
Thank you.
All right, Robb Greene, Representative District 47,
47.
Shelbyville. Thank you very much for your commitment to public service, your willingness to engage in the process, and also your willingness to take some time and chat with us today about the 2024 session. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.